Cognizant to the needs of our learners, parents, and teachers, the Department of Education provided us with powerful tools for productivity that will allow us to foster critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, communication and collaboration skills to be compassionate, responsible global citizens. Join us and discover new ideas in our series of professional development training program with the ICT's Edtech Unit and Microsoft Education Philippines. Together, we will equip our learners and empower our fellow educators for a dynamic future. Para sa bata, para sa bayan, at para sa guro. Sulong Edukalidad.
Magandang araw, Sir Wilbur po, at your service. Narito ang ETUlay upang gabayan ka sa inyong pag-aaral upang lubos na maunawaan ang iba't ibang paksa o subject. Ang ETUlay ay isang free online tutorial class na pinangungunahan ng ICT's Educational Technology Unit sa pamumuno ni Undersecretary Elaine Del P. Pascua. Ang programang ito ay hindi lamang para sa mga bata, kundi ito rin ay magsisilbing gabay sa mga magulang at mga guro kung paano nila ituturo o gagabayan sa bawat asignatura ang kanilang mga anak o mga estudyante. Sa kasalukuyan, ang self-learning module mula sa rehiyon ng Calabarzon at kilala sa tawag na pivot ang ginagamit sa ating ETUlay online class. Kaya ano pang hinihintay ninyo? Ihanda na ang inyong mga ballpen o lapis, papel o kwaderno at samahan kaming itulay ang pagkatuto para sa bawat batang Pilipino. Sama-sama tayong magtutulungan para malampasan ang mga hamon sa panahong ito. Halina't matuto kasama ang inyong online tutor sa oras na ito.
Ayan, good afternoon sa lahat ng mga nakatutok na sa ETUlay online tutorial. Batiin, okay. Yes. Batiin ko muna yung mga comments sa ating live streaming. Parang ayaw makisama ng phone natin. Hello? Wait lang ha. Wait lang. At parang may problema bang phone natin? Okay. Ano dapat ito? Ito update. Cool. Kailangan pa itong i-update ito. Anyway, so mamaya ko babasahin yung mga comments ninyo. Ituloy natin sa ating presentation. So, this is still the ETUlay online tutorial brought to us by DepEd Online and Educational Technology Unit. And today's edition is for Math 6, quarter, ay mali pala ito, dapat quarter 4 yan. Hindi ko na-edit kanina. Quarter 4 na tayo. Week 1, at ang lesson ay about volume of solid figures. Yan. So, ang schedule pa rin natin ay 1 o'clock to 1:40 p.m. At yung module na ating ginamit na reference para sa mga slide natin ay still from the Schools Division of Negros Oriental, Region 7. And ang objectives natin ay syempre, to determine and explain the relationship of the volume between the following pairs of solid figures. Unang pair, rectangular prism and rectangular pyramid, cylinder and a cone, and a cylinder and a sphere. Yan. And syempre, dahil volume of solid figures yan, we have to understand what volume is. So last quarter kasi, ang natakal natin ay about surface area. Na ang thinking natin pag surface area ay yung amount ng gift wrapping or amount ng paper na pwede natin magamit para mabalot completely yung solid. Kaya pa ditong makasama. Yan. Okay. So, ang volume ay measurement of the total space occupied by a solid. It is also the amount of space measured in cubic units that an object or substance occupies. Okay. Yan, pwede na ako mag-greet. Wala na yung aking kinakancel sa aking phone. Yan. Good afternoon sa lahat ng mga nakatutok ulit ngayon. Yan, yung mga regular na nag-a-attend to yung tutorial ng Math 6 ay nakita ko ng mga pangalan ninyo. Hello po, Gestopa Flory from Cipriano Alcala Memorial Elementary School, Baay City. Hello kay Kisha. Good afternoon. Siya ay from Nagkaisang Nayon Elementary School. Hello, Samantha Blasi. Hello, Zenny R. De La Cruz. Hello, Francine Nicole Divina from Muñoz, Nueva Ecija. Hello po, Ramiel Luy from Gapan North Central School. Rosalinda Rada Gutierrez Sarion. Good PM din po. Kay Althea Nicole Bayani ng Biclat Elementary School. Grade 6, Jose P. Rizal. Yan. Good afternoon kay Rica Mel ng San Diego Silang, San Roque Elementary School, Davao City. Yan, maayong Maayong buntag ba? Sa yung tanan. Yan, watching from Nakalamba, Laguna naman, si Telly Mary Jane Casiple. Yan, good afternoon sa lahat sa inyo. Ituloy na natin. So, ang mga units for volume, syempre yung merong exponent na 3. We have yung cubic centimeters, cubic meters, cubic inches, tsaka cubic feet. Yan. Although interchangeably nagagamit yung volume sa capacity, halimbawa yung yung baso. That's an example of a cylinder, tama? So meron siyang volume, meron din siyang capacity. Yung capacity ay tumutukoy dun sa amount of liquid or gas na pwede niyang i-hold. So pag gano'n, ang pinag-uusapan, ang unit ay liters, milliliters, etc. So medyo kasi, almost similar ang volume sa capacity. Pag volume kasi nga, yun ay total space occupied by a solid. Whereas yung capacity is yung amount of water or amount of liquid or gas that a solid can hold. So syempre, yung mga solid lang ng hollow, ibig sabihin may butas pa sa gitna, yung pwedeng lagyan ng tubig, ang merong capacity. So ibig sabihin, pag ang solid, wala siyang butas or hindi siya pwedeng lagyan ng tubig or gas, wala siyang capacity. Volume lang ang meron sa kanya. So pag ganun, we can use the formula for volume to determine the capacity. Ayan. So let's have muna the volume of a rectangular prism. So for any prism, ang formula na ginagamit natin ay ito. Yung formula na V equals BH. So take note, capital ang B, hindi siya small b lang. Kasi pag sa volume ang capital B and even sa surface area, pag sabing capital B, that is area of the base. So ibig sabihin, for any prism, the volume V should be equal to the product of the area of the base and the height. So again, capital B stands for the area of the base, while H stands for the height of the prism. Now, syempre pag rectangular prism, as the name suggests, the base is a rectangle. At pag rectangle ang base, ang area mo doon should be obtained by following the formula A equals L times W, which means area is equal to length times width. So, ibig sabihin, ang formula, a specific or unique to rectangular prism in determining its volume is written as V equals LWH, length times width times height. So, syempre, yung L doon ay length ng base, yung W ay width ng base, whereas yung H is the height of the prism or the rectangular prism to be specific. Yan. So again, pag rectangular prism, the formula na ginagamit ay V equals LWH, length times width times height. Yan. So sa figure natin, ito yung base. So we assume na this rectangular prism sits on its base. So ibig sabihin, itong nasa taas ay congruent and parallel dun sa nasa baba na base din. Remember? Diba? Ang rectangular prism ay may dalawa siyang faces na considered as bases. Yung other four are called lateral faces. So sa base niya, may dimensions na length and width kasi nga rectangle yan. Tapos yung edge, okay, dito, yan, bali lang edge yan, na considered as the height. Yan, so pare-parehas na height yan. So that is the height of the prism. So, if we are given like the length is 8 centimeters and the width of the base is 3 centimeters and the height of the prism is 4 centimeters, okay, the volume is equal to the product of the three measurements. So 8 centimeters times 3 centimeters times 4 centimeters. And this is equal to 96 cubic centimeters. So, cm times cm times cm. Diba? Sa law of exponents, okay? So, if we're going to treat this as the variable, so cm, 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 so ang ginagawa lang ay, since we're multiplying the same base, so cm will consider to be a base, so add lang exponents. So, understood to be 1 ang exponent dito. So, 1 plus 1 plus 1, kaya naging 3. Kaya cm cube or cubic centimeters ang unit. Tapos, 8 times 3 times 4, so 8 times 3, 24 times 4, 96. So, yan ang volume ng rectangular prism whose given measurements are listed here. So, 96 cubic centimeters. So, 96 cc meaning 96 ml naman ang capacity ng prism na yan kung meron siyang butas. Pwede siyang lagyan ng tubig or gas. Remember, 1 cubic centimeter is equal to 1 milliliter. Yeah, yes. Okay, next. Now, we proceed to the volume of a rectangular pyramid. So, kagaya sa rectangular prism, ang rectangular pyramid, syempre, by the way, yung formula for any pyramid ay given by the formula V, which stands for the volume, equals 1/3 of the area of the base times height. So again, the big letter B there stands for area of the base of the pyramid, and H stands for the height of the pyramid. Hello sa mga bumabati ngayon. Okay, next. So again, kagaya sa rectangular prism, ang rectangular pyramid ay pyramid na mayroong base na rectangle. Ibig sabihin, to get the value of the big letter B or the area of the base, we need to compute it using the formula A equals LW, where L is the length and W is the width of the rectangular base. So, ibig sabihin, we can rewrite this formula here para maging specific lang siya sa rectangular pyramid. So, paano yun? It should be expressed as this one. V, or the volume V, is equal to 1/3 of the product of length, width, and height. Kasi nga yung base niya ay rectangular, it's equal to length times width, yung area nun. So, sa pyramid, syempre, yung segment drawn from the vertex or yung apex where all the edges or the faces intersect, all the edges, yes, intersect, tok-tok. Okay, the segment from there going down directly, okay, tawag dito, yeah, below that point, tapos tatamaan niyo yung center ng base such that it is perpendicular to that. Okay, yan yung height or altitude ng pyramid. Siyempre, yung sa dimensions ng rectangle, yun yung length and width. Okay. So, sa rectangular pyramid, yun nga, ang volume ay computed as, okay, 1/3 of the product of the length and the width of the base and the height of the pyramid. Yan. So, 1/3 LWH. So, let's say, ang length ng base ay 5 cm or 5 centimeters at ang width naman ay 4 centimeters at ang height ay 6 centimeters. So, ang volume is computed this way. So, we simply plug in the values of L, W, and H. So, 1/3 of the product of 5 cm, 4 cm, and 6 cm. So, 5 times 4, 20 times 6, kaya 120 yan. And then, cm times cm times cm, tatlo yan, kaya cm raised to 3 or cubic centimeters. So, we need to get 1/3 of 120 cubic centimeters and we'll obtain 40 cubic centimeters. That will be the volume of the rectangular pyramid. Okay, now, let's determine the relationship between the volume of these two solids, rectangular prism and a rectangular pyramid. So, sa pangalan pa lang nila, okay, may hint na tayo na parehas na yung shape. Parehas yung shape ng base nila. Parehong rectangle. But in our example, okay, as indicated by the measurements, not only are the shapes of the bases the same, but also the dimensions. So, pakita natin. So, the bases are congruent. Ibig sabihin, parehas ng shape at parehas ng dimensions. Okay, so yan ang mga base. So, ito yung base ng rectangular prism. Ito yung base ng rectangular pyramid. So, we can see na parehas yung dimensions, parehas yung length, parehong 6 centimeters, at parehas din yung width, parehas na 4 centimeters. Now, aside from having the same bases or congruent bases, the heights are also the same. So, ano ba yung mga height dyan? Siyempre, yung height sa prism, itong 8 centimeters. While yung sa pyramid is itong 8 centimeters also. Again, pag height ng pyramid, ito yung from the apex, okay, to the center of the base such that it is a perpendicular segment. Yan. So what do we do now? We have to compute muna for the volume of each solid. So, unahin natin yung rectangular prism. So again, the volume is equal or obtained by simply multiplying the length, the width of the base, and the height of the pyramid. So we have volume equals 6 centimeters times 4 centimeters times 8 centimeters. So we'll get 24 times 8, bali 192. And the unit is of course cubic centimeters. So yan ang volume ng prism, 192 cubic centimeters. Okay, so we denote it as V sub M. Kasi mamaya, we'll use the V para naman sa pyramid. So that's why naggamit ako ng iba pang variable or nag-specify ako ng subscript. So V sub M, kasi nga parehas silang nag-start sa R, parehas din may P. So yung ending na lang nung prism, kaya M. So V sub M equals 192 cubic centimeters. Yes, that's the volume of the prism. Now for the volume of the pyramid, right, in this slide, so we'll get the product of the length, the width, and the height and get its 1/3. So by substitution, we have volume V equals 1/3 of the product of 6 centimeters, 4 centimeters, and 8 centimeters. So getting the product of those dimensions or measurements, we'll write, okay, we'll show that volume V is equal to 1/3 of 192 cubic centimeters. So observe that. Yan. So yung 192 na yan, yan yung volume ng prism. So we're like stating here that the volume of the pyramid having the same base and height as that of the prism is equal to 1/3, okay, of the volume of the prism. So we have 1/3 of 192, and that is equal to 64. Yes, you're correct, Telly Mary Jane. Kasimple. 64 cubic centimeters. So let's denote that as V sub D. Kaya kasi nag-end sa D ang pyramid. So the volume of the rectangular pyramid is equal to 64 cubic centimeters. So again, these two solids have the same base, have the same height and have congruent bases. So what will be our conclusion? What is the relationship between the volume of these two solids? So ito ang conclusion natin. If a rectangular prism and a rectangular pyramid have congruent bases, meaning parehas sila ng base area, parehas ang measurements or dimensions ng base nila, and have the same height. So, two conditions. Congruent bases, the same height. So, what will be the conclusion then? The volume of the rectangular pyramid is 1/3 of the volume of the rectangular prism. So, again, kapag parehas ang base nila, meaning pati measurements ay parehas, at pati yung height ay parehas, yung rectangular pyramid will have a volume that is 1/3 of the volume of the rectangular prism. So, balikan natin yung given kanina. Yan. So, itong volume na to na 64 ay 1/3 nung 192. Okay, so kumbaga 192 divided by 3 will yield 64. So, that's 1/3. Okay, that's the relationship between the volume of these two solids. Now, let's proceed to the next pair. So, ang una sa pair na yan ay yung cylinder. So, syempre sa cylinder, in getting its volume, we need to multiply the area of the base pa din. Pero this time, nakaspecify na siya. Kasi ang base ng cylinder ay circle, so the area for circle is pi r squared. So, wait lang, highlight natin yan. So, itong pi r squared dito, yan actually ang value ng big letter B. So, ang area of the base ng cylinder ay pi r squared nga kasi nga circle or circular. So, syempre, ang r doon stands for the radius length. While h in the formula stands for the height of the cylinder. Paano burahin yung aking mga sinulat? Eraser. May eraser ba dito? Ayan, eraser. Okay. Now, let's say we are given that this cylinder here has a radius length which is 2 inches while its height is 6 inches. So to compute for the volume, we'll simply follow the formula. So we have, mag-highlighter tayo ulit. Yan. So we're going to express the answer in terms of pi. Kaya we're not going to use any approximate value for it. So we have pi times the square of the radius length. That's why you have here square of 2 inches times the height, which is 6 inches. So for the second line of solution, we just will just show kung ano yung value ng square of 2 inches. That is why yung pi tsaka 6 inches ay kinopya lang. So whereas yung sa gitna, okay, ay equal na sa 4 square inches. And then after that, we'll get the product of r squared and height. So we have 24 cubic inches. And then after that, dahil nga in terms of pi lang, we just have to put 24 and pi beside each other. So 24 pi cubic inches, okay? Ang expression equivalent to the volume of this cylinder here, whose radius is 2 inches and whose height is 6 inches. Okay. Next, let's have volume of a cone. So sa volume ng cone, it is equal to 1/3 area of the base, which is equal to pi r squared kasi nga circular din ang base ng cone, times the height din. So, 1/3 lang ang nadagdag dun sa formula ginagamit sa volume ng cylinder. So, yung pi r squared height, parehas silang meron nun. Okay. Now, so sa cone, meron tayong radius pa din. So, this is the length from the center towards the circumference or a point in the circumference of the circle. And this segment here, perpendicular to the base, from the vertex of the cone is height or the height h. Yeah, so let's say we are given that the radius here measures 8 centimeters while the height measures 18 centimeters. So again, we'll use na lang din, we'll express the volume in terms of pi. So we have, 1/3 of pi times the square of the radius length, which is 8 centimeters, times the height, which is 18 centimeters. So again, for the second line of solution, the rest will just be copied, pero yung value ng 8 centimeters quantity squared is already written, which is 64 square centimeters. And then after that, yung 64 square centimeters, i-multiply sa 18 centimeters, so we'll get 1,152 cubic centimeters. Now, we'll get the 1/3 of that, okay, quantity, yung 1/3 ng 1152, and the answer is 384, and then affix yung pi and the unit cubic centimeters. So in terms of pi, the volume V of this cone is 384 pi cubic centimeters. Yeah. Now, let's determine the relationship between the volume of a cylinder and a cone given these two solids here, showing us that they have the same, okay, radiuses or the radii are congruent. So, ang pronunciation dito ay hindi radii ha, radii. Or, yung sa pang plural form ng radius ay radiuses. Mag-add lang tayo ng es. Okay? So, the radii are congruent kasi parehas silang 4 inches ang length. Yan, 4 inches ang haba ng mga radius sa base ng cylinder at sa base ng cone. Aside from that, okay, yan, so na-highlight natin yung 4 inches. The heights are the same. So, parehas na 9 inches ang haba ng height ng cylinder at ng cone. Okay, so para mas maging malinaw ang relationship ng dalawang yan, ito guys, sa iba malabo. So, let's compute for the volume of each one. So the cylinder's volume is computed following this formula here. Volume V equals pi r squared height. Yes, that's correct, Samantha Blasi. Okay, so again, we'll just express volume in terms of pi, kaya pi pa din ang nasa second line of solution after the formula. So we'll just plug in the value of r here and the value of h. So for the next line of solution, pi and 9 inches are just retained or kinopya lang din, pero yung square of 4 inches, nakalito na yung value niyan, which is 16 square inches. And after that, pakita lang natin na yung product ng 16 square inches saka ng 9 inches ay 144 cubic inches. And lastly, okay, pagtabihin lang natin yung 144 at saka pi. Kasi nga in terms of pi ang ating magiging sagot. So 144 pi cubic inches. That is the volume of the cylinder, or we'll denote this as V sub Cy. Cy means cylinder. So the volume of the cylinder is equal to 144 pi cubic inches. Now, it's time to compute for the volume of the cone. So the formula is this, 1/3 of pi r squared height. So by substitution, we show that the volume V is 1/3 of pi times the square of 4 inches and 9 inches. Times 9 inches. And then, for the next line of solution, yung 1/3 tsaka pi tsaka 9 inches ay kinopya lang. Pero yung value ng square of 4 inches ay sinulat na natin, which is 16 square inches. And then, after this, we will just show kung ano yung product ng dalawang quantities yan, 16 square inches and 9 inches. So that is equal also to 144 cubic inches. So observe that this 144 cubic inches is actually the volume of the cylinder that we obtained or computed earlier. So that means, okay, so itong product ng pi sa 144 cubic inches is equivalent to 144 pi cubic inches, which is the volume of the cylinder. So hindi ko natakpan pati yung pi, sorry. Yan, so that means, okay, we can express the answer as 48 pi kasi ang 1/3 ng 144 ay 48. So the volume of the cone, or V sub CO, is 48 pi cubic inches. So, balikan natin. So, ang 1/3 ng volume ng cylinder dito ay equal dun sa volume ng cone. Bakit ganon? Kasi nga, okay, as a conclusion, if a cylinder and a cone have congruent radii, meaning they have the same radius length and have the same height. So parehas yung length ng radius ng mga base nila at parehas sila ng height, then the volume of the cone is 1/3 of the volume of the cylinder. So again, yung volume ng cone ay 1/3 ng volume ng cylinder kapag parehas yung length ng radius nila at parehas sila ng height. So 1/3 ng 144 pi ay 48 pi. So they have the same unit lang din naman, cubic inches. Yes. Okay, so gaya ng rectangular pyramid kanina, parehas yung kondisyon. Parehas yung base area kasi di ba kung parehas sila ng radius, parehas yung magiging base area nila at parehas din ng height. Yes, that's correct, Telly. They have also the same base. But we specified here na parehas ang radius. Kasi nga, these two are with circular bases. Okay. So next, we study now the volume of a sphere. Okay. So which can be modeled by a ball. Okay, so the volume is given by the formula V equals 4/3 of pi r cubed. So sa sphere, ang nag-iiba lang dyan, syempre yung value ng r, which is the radius length. So ito yon. Ito yung segment from the center to the circumference of the circle. So let's say ang given ay, the radius is 7 centimeters long. So we have the computation for its volume. So sa unang line of solution natin dito, 4/3 times pi times the cube of 7 centimeters. So nag-plug in lang tayo ng value ng radius length or ng value ng r. And then, for the second line of solution, 4/3 pi, kinopya pa rin natin yan. But, we showed na dito yung value ng 7 centimeter quantity cube, which is equal to 7 cm times 7 cm times 7 cm. That is equal to 343 cubic centimeters. Now, what we can do is dahil nga express din natin siya in terms of pi, tapos yung unit ay ganun pa din, cubic centimeters, yung 343 tsaka 4/3 ipag-multiply natin. So, syempre dahil this is a whole number and this is a fraction, this is with over 1 natural, yung kaya magiging denominator ay 3 sa product nila. So, kinopya lang natin yung denominator nung isang factor, which is a fraction. Tapos yung numerator will be the product of the whole number and the numerator of the fraction 4/3. So, 343 times 4 is 1,372. So we can write it this way na 1,372 over 3 pi cubic centimeters, or pwede naman nating isama na yung pi dun sa numerator. 1,372 pi over 3 cubic centimeters. Yan. Hello sa mga taga South Central School under kay Ma'am Rosalia Pajarillo Gawiran of grade 6 Gemini. Hello po. Good afternoon po, Ma'am Evelyn Torres. Yan. So, fourth quarter na, no? So, ilang weeks na lang. Iyakan moment na, joke lang. So, mag-graduate na kayo. So, kayo ba ay feeling dalagat binata na or feeling mga bata pa din? So, nasa transition period yan kayo. Kaya observation namin naming mga teachers kapag may mga grade 7 na sa school, yan, mga isip bata pa din. Kasi playful pa. Pero syempre, kalaunan, makakapag-adjust din sila. Yes. Yes, that's correct po. Okay. Now, we determine the relationship between the volume of a cylinder and the sphere by referring to these two solids here kung saan may label na. Okay? Sino pang walang label dyan? Joke lang. Mga relasyon yung walang label. Yes, joke lang po. So the cylinder here has a radius length represented by the variable r. Okay? Kagaya din ng sa sphere. Pareha sila ng variable representing the radius length. Meaning, parehas yung radius length nila. Tapos, we can see na yung height ng cylinder dito ay equal sa 2 times r, meaning 2 times the length of the radius, meaning yung diameter ng circular base ay yun yung equal sa height ng cylinder. So, let's take note of that. So again, the radii or the radiuses are congruent. They are both represented by the same variable, which is r. And the height of the cylinder is twice the length of the radius. So h, which is the height of the cylinder, is equal to 2r. So yan. Or the diameter of the base. Kasi 2r means twice the radius or equal to the length of the diameter. Okay. So let's say, ang radius or yung value ng r dyan ay 9 millimeters. So pakita natin. So that is 9 millimeters. So parehas na ganyan yung haba ng radius nila. Ng base ng cylinder at ng radius ng sphere. And the height of the cylinder, which is equal to twice the radius, of course, must be equal to 18 millimeters. So, doblehin mo lang yung 9, magiging siyang 18 kasi nga 2r ang specified length ng height. Yes. Yes. Hi sa teacher daw ni Telly Mary Jane Casiple kay Ma'am Jen ng grade 6 Uranus. Tama? Hello po. And hello din sa aking mga teacher nung ako ay grade 6 pa din. Kay Ma'am Lizette M. Santiago ng Talimundok Elementary School. Hello, Ma'am Lizette. Yan. At syempre, yung isa yata naming teacher nun ay retired na. Si Ma'am Descanso, ang aming science teacher. Si Ma'am Lizette, ang aming math teacher at ang Filipino din. Yes. Yan. Tuloy natin. So this time, let's compute for the volume muna ng cylinder. Okay. Given the indicated measurements. The radius length is 9 millimeters and the height is 18 millimeters. Ayan, papabati din si Francine Nicole Divina. Hello kay Ma'am Mary Ann Paraguison. Yan, teacher ni Francine Nicole Divina. Hello, good afternoon. Yan, so again, the volume for the cylinders, the formula for the volume of the cylinder is given by the equation V equals pi r squared height. So plug in lang natin ang radius length and yung height. Okay, and then for the next line, Copyhin lang yung pi tsaka yung heights measurement. Tapos yung square ng radius ay binigay din natin dyan, which is 81 square millimeters. Tapos, multiply 81 by 18, you'll get 1458. At syempre, ang unit na yan ay millimeter, cubic millimeters. Kasi nga, millimeter squared times millimeter is equal to millimeter cubed or cubic millimeters. So, the volume of the cylinder here in terms of pi is given by this expression. 1,458 pi cubic millimeters. Yan. Good afternoon po. Yes. Ayan. Si Ma'am Sunset Sir, how do you say that name? Sunset Surses Alinio. Hello. Math teacher nyo yan? Okay, hello. Kay Brix Arquiden at kay Maria Cristina Belmonte. Yan. Santo Rosario, tsaka sa Bulacan District. So, we'll denote muna na yung 1458 pi cubic millimeters ay yung volume ng cylinder. Kaya we have there V sub Cy. So, Cy there stands for cylinder. Now, let's proceed to determining the volume of the sphere. So, 4/3 pi r cube nga ang formula. So, mag-plug in lang tayo ng value ng r, which is 9 millimeters din. Tapos, syempre, i-cube natin siya. That means 9 times 9 times 9. That is equal to 729 cubic millimeters. And then after that, yung 729, i-multiply sa 4/3. Or simply, copyin lang muli yung denominator na 3 since whole number itong 729 kasi automatically 1 lang yan. 3 times 1 is 3. Tapos 729 times 4 is 2,916. Okay. And then affix lang yung pi tapos cubic millimeters ang unit. So that means ang volume ng sphere dito ay can be expressed by 2,916 over 3 pi cubic millimeters. So, hindi pa ganong obvious ano yung relationship ng dalawang volume na yan. So, pero pakita natin. So, ang 2,916 over 3 pi cubic millimeters, okay, pwede siyang i-express this way. So, ang 2,916 ay actually equal sa 2 times 1,458. Okay? Tapos, over 3 pa din, tapos may pi cubic millimeters. And, we can also express it this way. So, magkakaroon na tayo ng fraction. So, 2/3. Ihiwalay natin yung 1,458. So, we can express it as 2/3 of 1,458 pi cubic millimeters. So, yung product ng 1,458 saka pi dito, tapos yung cubic millimeters, yan ay actually equal sa volume ng cylinder. So, we are like saying here that the volume of the sphere is 2/3 of the volume of the cylinder. So, yun yung magiging relationship nila. 2/3 ng volume ng cylinder ay yung volume ng sphere. Bakit? Kasi nga, pareha sila ng radius length at yung diameter nila ay yun ang height ng cylinder. So, let's write it in words. Our conclusion, if a cylinder and a sphere have congruent radii or radiuses, kaya si Allen, kayo na pa ito naggagawa ng emoji. And the height of the cylinder is twice the length of the radius. Then, we say that the volume of the sphere is 2/3 of the volume of the cylinder. So again, 2/3. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, wait lang. So, yung 2,916 over 3 pi cubic millimeters ay 2/3 ng 1,458 pi cubic millimeters. Yan. So, let's have practice. Medyo mag-overtime tayo kasi meron tayong mga 3 or 4 na tanong as practice exercises. A rectangular prism has a volume of 21 cubic feet. Yan ang given natin ha. So, rectangular prism, ang solid, na ang volume na binigay ay 21 cubic feet. Now, there is a rectangular pyramid having the same base area and height as that of this rectangular prism. So, what is the volume of this rectangular pyramid? So, parehas yung height at yung base area ng dalawang solid na binabanggit dyan. So, what is the volume of the rectangular pyramid? Sige nga, if you're able to grasp yung relationship ng mga pares ng mga solid, ano kaya ang sagot sa tanong na yan? Nalobat na yung ating phone, 9% na lang ang baterya. Yan, wala pang pumapasok ng sagot. Wala pati si Francine. Nakikigaya na rin kay Allen. Pag may pag-ghost ka dyang emoji. Oh, anyone? Ba't parang may absent sa inyo? May absent talaga. Parang hindi ko nababasa yung pangalan ni Akisha Ariola. Yes. Yung ating isa sa mga suki din na student ng ating tutorial every Friday. So every Friday is Matalino Day. 1 to 1:40 p.m. ang Math 6. Ayan, wala pa tayong sagot ha. So, i-refresh natin mga isip. Di ba? Kanina, we were able to show na ang volume ng pyramid, that is V sub D there sa aking slide, ay equal sa 1/3 ng volume ng prism. Wala. Lubat na. Okay. Yan, naglubat ng aking phone. Pasensya na. So, hindi ko na siguro mababasa yung mga comments ninyo. Yan, hindi ako nakapag-prepare. Yan. Anyway. Okay, so again, the volume of the pyramid is equal to 1/3 of the volume of the prism, provided that the two solids mentioned here have the same height and have the same base area, meaning congruent ang kanilang bases. So therefore, kung binigay na yung volume ng prism, all we have to do then is to get its 1/3, which means we have the equation V sub D, or the volume of the pyramid, is equal to 1/3 of 21 cubic feet, which means that the volume of the pyramid, of the rectangular pyramid there, is 7 cubic feet. Yan. Next, a cylinder has a volume naman of 45 pi cubic centimeters. So cylinder naman ang solid dito ha. And its volume is specified to be this, 45 pi cubic centimeters. Now, we have a cone that has the same radius and height as that of the cylinder. So parehas ang radius, parehas ang height ng cone na to doon sa cylinder na binanggit doon sa unang statement. So what is the volume of this cone? So ibig sabihin, dapat by inspection or given only this, tsaka yung condition na nasatisfy ng cone, para siya lang radius sa height ng cylinder, we can already compute for the volume of the cone without using any computing for the volume of the cone using the formula. Diba? Kasi kanina, we were able to determine the relationship between the volume of the two solids. And ito yun. The volume of the cone is equal to 1/3 of the volume of the cylinder. So parang sa kanina lang din. Kapag binigay ng volume ng isa, okay, get mo lang yung 1/3. Okay? Provided yung binigay is cylinder. Tapos, ang hinahanapan natin ay yung volume ng cone. Okay? Kasi kung binigay naman ang volume ng cone, tapos kukunin mo yung volume ng cylinder, iba yung ating magiging solution doon. We'll have to multiply by 3. Kasi di ba, 1/3 ng volume ng cylinder ang cone. Ibig sabihin, 3 times the volume of that cone will be equal to the volume of the cylinder. So, ayan. So, by plugging in lang the value of the volume of the cylinder, which is 45 pi cubic centimeters, will show that the volume of the cone is equal to 15 pi cubic centimeters. So, that's already done. Let's have the third item. A cylinder whose height is twice the length of its radius has a volume of 45 pi cubic centimeters. So, again, di ba kanina, doon sa ating illustration, yung height ng cylinder ay twice nung length ng radius niya. Yung R, tapos may 2R tayo. So again, the height of the cylinder is twice the length of its radius. And the volume is specified to be, ayan. So we use the same volume lang, 45 pi cubic centimeters. Now, there is a sphere that has the same radius as that of this cylinder. So what is its volume? So binigay, volume ng cylinder na ang specifications, ang height niya ay twice nung length ng radius niya. At meron tayong sphere na kaparehas ang radius length ng sa cylinder. So, i-recall natin ano yung relationship ng volume ng dalawang yan. Diba? We were able to show kanina that the volume of a sphere having the same radius as the cylinder, whose height naman is twice its radius, is equal to 2/3 of the volume of the cylinder. So 2/3. We'll have to get the 2/3 of 45 pi cubic centimeters in order for us to determine the volume of the sphere. So 2/3 of 45, that is 2 times 45 over 3, 90 over 3, that means 30 pi cubic centimeters ang volume niya. O, last one. Ito, medyo we have to analyze here. Okay, a cylinder, a cone, and a sphere have the same radius length. So, ito yung unang condition binanggit ha. Pare-parehas ang kanilang radius length. So, RRR. Joke lang. The cylinder and the cone, okay, sa mga nabanggit ko, have the same height. Okay? Which is equal to twice the radius length. So, yung height ng dalawa, yung cylinder tsaka yung cone, ay parehas at specified to be double or twice the radius length. So, we have now to describe the relationship between the volume of the sphere and the cone. So, ibig sabihin yung sphere tsaka cone, anong common nila? Parehas ulit yung radius. Plus, yung height ng cone ay twice din ng radius length, kagaya sa cylinder. So, una, pakita natin ano ba yung relationship ng sa cylinder at sa sphere. Di ba? Ang volume ng sphere ay 2/3 ng volume ng cylinder. Whereas, ang volume ng cone ay 1/3 ng volume ng cylinder. So, mapapansin natin na both volumes are expressed in terms of the volume of the cylinder. Yung sa sphere, 2/3 ng volume ng cylinder. Yung sa cone, 1/3 ng volume ng cylinder. And we can express 2/3 of the volume of the cylinder as 2 times 1/3 of the volume of the cylinder. So yung 2/3 na ito ay equal sa product ng 2 at ng 1/3. Yan. So nagamit natin ito tsaka ito sa equation natin dito. So 2/3 V sub CY is equal to 2 times 1/3 V sub CY. So take note, itong 2/3 na to ay volume ng sphere at itong 1/3 naman dito ay volume ng sa cone. Yan. So therefore, we can express this equation right here this way. So ibig sabihin, ang volume ng sphere, which is equal to 2/3 of the volume of the cylinder, ay equal sa 2 times the volume of the cone. So, ibig sabihin lang, dobluhin mo lang yung volume ng cone, that will be already the volume of the sphere, provided nga that the two have the same radius length and that the height of the cone is equal to 2 times the radius length. Or ibig sabihin, yung diameter ng base ng cone at diameter ng radius ay yun yung height ng cone. Okay, so that will be the last item for today's practice for Math 6 Quarter 4 Week 1. Yeah, so for your comments and suggestions, you can email us at edtech@deped.gov.ph. So that has been our session for Week 1 nga ng Quarter 4 for Math 6. So thank you very much. Dakal pong salamat. Maraming thank you sa mga taga-Visayas. Hindi ko na alam. Ang alam ko lang sa Visayas yata ang bud sa imo. Daghang salamat. Daghang salamat. Daghang salamat. So, up next. So, kung may mga kapatid kayong nag-aaral at grade 7 sila, so, tutukan natin ang pag-tutor naman ni Tutor Rose Ann for her Math 7 class. So, again, maraming salamat sa inyong pagtutok sa mga kapwa ko guro at sa mga estudyante kong regular na nag-a-attend sa ating mga tutorial. Since second quarter, maraming salamat sa inyo at sa inyong suporta. So, again, i-share natin yung live streaming na to sa ating mga Facebook page or social media accounts at i-follow natin syempre ang Facebook page ng DepEd Philippines, DepEd Tayo, DepEd TV at ng Educational Technology Unit. So, maraming salamat po. God bless everyone. See you next week. Bye-bye.